Okay, everybody, so like Miss Beer said, I'm going to be working with the sky. I have some mountains sketched in right here. I have a water element. Of course, we have our grass, trees. So I'm going to kind of try to hit all of these for us to kind of go through. I really like to work from the background forward. So the last thing we're going to be hitting is the tree, maybe some of these water elements that are a little closer, and from there, I always make sure before I start I have all of my basic colors. So I like to mix as I go. So that is one of my things I like to do. So I do a lot of like mixing the colors to blend it, which I think is really important whenever you're doing a lot of these elements. Also, if you are looking for a specific color, it is always great to mix that ahead too. So if you're looking for a specific blue, purple, or green, just make sure it's already there so then you're not waiting for your paint to dry. And then you're gonna be more difficult to work with. So the first thing I have is my beautiful sky right here. So I was really interested in maybe doing a purple and pink sky. So I'm just gonna go horizontally. I'm just gonna kind of map out these elements. And then if it's kind of, you see how it's kind of being a little bit grainy, you can always add a touch of water and it'll help smooth these out. Now I said a touch, so don't like dip your whole brush in and then go crazy. So you just want a little. A little goes a long way with paint because otherwise it'll become transparent. So, and then let's say I would love to add some more like aurora effect. So I like to do that wet on wet feel. So what that means is I'm having wet paint, wet brush. I'm even getting this wet as well, and I'm gonna end up layering. So then I'm gonna just grab some just normal pink, and I'm gonna blend this in back and forth. So my brush strokes are gonna be kind of quick because I'm wanting it to be wet. I'm not wanting it to be dry. So my goal is to beat the paint from drying. So as you can see, even though my brush is dirty, because I'm gonna have a purple background anyway, I am wetting down my canvas first. I think art is fun, it is messy, it's fun to be creative and flexible. So I am just wetting all of this down, and then I'm gonna add in all of those nice colors. I'm avoiding this, I'm gonna make this either, I think I'm making it a moon. We'll see how it goes, how it progresses. So I'm gonna grab some white and some pink, and I'm just going to just very nicely put those in. So as you can see, it's a very fluid motion. I'm kind of just very gently gliding on there, stopping, going. And then let's say I would like to add in some clouds. Now, right now it's a little wet, so I can go back in and show you how to do some clouds. My favorite way is actually to use finger painting for clouds. It makes them fluffy and light, and it's one of my favorite ways to kind of add in some of those things. I'm just adding in some white right now to kind of make it a little lighter because I don't want it too dark. So this all up here in my sky was that wet technique, and I'm just doing very nice quick strokes. Now I'm gonna move on while that's drying to do my mountains. So I'm gonna just wash my brush, change some things out. So for my mountains, I'm gonna make them that black and gray and white coloring. So you guys have it really nice. I'm going in blind with my ideas. You guys have it where you have a nice picture to kind of help guide you. So I'm gonna just kind of outline what I want with a lighter color. So I like to just break up that space. Now our mountains have ridges, so that's kind of really important to help differentiate a lot of those elements. So for example, I have this really nice mountain coming in right through here, and I want this to come before this mountain. So I want this one in the front and I want this one in the back. So how am I gonna do that? I am going to make this one darker, push it back. This one's gonna be lighter. So looking at those colorings, so I'm just gonna add that white along that line. I picked up some purple along the way. That's fine, we work with what we have. I switched over to a smaller brush since I'm wanting some more details. Just kind of doing that nice little bumpy ridge. And then of course it's the base of the mountain, so it's nice, has some darker edges to it. Just kind of, again, blending all of that in. Now if I want more of a rougher texture, you can easily have it more dry on dry. So you see how like right over here, it's definitely more of that. You can see the paper coming through. That's that dry on dry. So I'm doing more wet on wet, but if your mountain is very textured, you can do it that way. And so this, I would still like to push it back a little more, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more black back here. So you see how this becomes the background and then this becomes the foreground, at least in the mountains. It becomes forward, it comes forward, and this is gonna push it back. So this is farther away. Things that are farther away on your mountain landscapes will most likely be darker. So I'm going to hop on down to some grass. I'm gonna clean my brush. Let's do some nice grass. I'm making mine a little psychedelic fun. Why not? So I really like this color. This is one of my favorite colors to work with, is just teal. So let's say you have your grass back here. It's not going to be very noticeable. So you can kind of like map this out. Let's say this is a nice river coming on in to the foreground. But then, so this space is going to not be as noticeable for your grass streaks. Okay? So it's a little bit flatter. If you want to add some of those streaks in, so this is wet on wet, all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of flicking up with my brush, and it's kind of creating, hang on. Gonna kind of zoom in on what I'm doing so you guys can see it better of what I'm doing. It's kind of like these smaller streaks. So I'm just kind of flicking up. It's creating a more textured back, but it's very small. And I'm going to increase that for when I come all the way to the top of my page. Now, if I want really nice streaks of grass, all I have to do is wet down my brush a little bit, wet this down. And I like to use a flat brush. So for a flat brush, it's flat on both ends. It's kind of like very skinny and flat, and you can get some really nice, let me zoom out, it'll be easier to see. You get some really nice brush strokes. So this is just that layering. So if you want some very nice, this is obviously, you can see that this is much closer, and this grass over here is gonna be a lot farther. And I can slowly make these bigger and bigger as I go if you have very textured grass in your painting. Okay, so there's a little bit of a nice grass example for you guys. I'm gonna now move on, yep, that's dry, to the tree. I love drawing trees. It's one of my favorite things to do. So for my tree, I'm gonna give you some basic elements. I like to use that flat brush again. That's flat on either side. You're gonna notice a common theme. I like using flat brushes. I think they have a nice line detail. I like working up from the base and going up. The reason why is a lot of times your trees are going to be thinner on top. You're not gonna have a tree very rarely that is not thin on top versus the base. So I'm just going to just slowly work my way up. Very nice long strokes. And then I'm gonna turn my brush on its side. So when I'm painting, I'm gonna kind of use it like this. It's gonna go on my side following it. I'm not using that flatter edge to follow it. So for example, I'll show you over here on this space. If I'm going on that flat edge, it makes that line. If I'm going on that side edge, it makes this line. So there is a difference. So that's gonna be easier when you try to do your branches. And then what you do, all you have to do is just, and then you release pressure. So it's pressure, 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 less pressure. And that's how you're gonna get those nice thin branches for your tree. So I'm just kind of putting in some details because I wanna show you some leaves, and I like to just kind of put all of these in. So they're there for you. For shading, I'm gonna do, since my moon's here, I'm gonna put a shadow on this side of the tree. So I'm gonna do a more dark brown. Lighting is very important, especially if you have a light source in your painting. Now I'm gonna switch over to a different brush for my leaves. We're gonna do some light green leaves. This is gonna be fun. So you can do something like stippling, where I'm just going through and I'm just dabbing. Dab, 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 dab. And then you can create a base. So this is gonna be more of my mid. And then you get all of those really nice foliage without trying too much. So you're not trying to put in every single leaf. You're just trying to put in some just leaves here and there. You get the impression of leaves. And this is great too because you can go over this and leave some branches out so they can come through later. Now, if you did already do this part, I can show you how to add some branches back in. So let's say if you're like, it's not enough, I'll show you that in just a second. Perfect. And then with that, I can easily just do some darker colors. So I'll just do straight green, and then I can add in some darker pieces. So that way, it just adds some dimension to the leaves. You have some lights and some darks. Now going back to, if you wanted to add some of those branches in, I'm gonna go in with this nice, small, round brush. And I'm gonna grab some of this brown, and I'm just gonna very gently, with a careful hand, you can just add them back in, but light touch is gonna be your friend. So don't press down, just kind of let the brush do the work for you. So you can see here, just had a nice little piece of that branch come right back in. All right, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you.